Hello everyone. I'm a little nervous to do this video, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Just one of the things is, talking with friends and people, and I know everyone's in some way, shape, or form going through something, and I know people are just feeling low. And it's interesting, a couple weeks ago, I was with a really good friend of mine, and she was struggling with something. And she asked me if I had ever gone through something like this. And at first, of course, when someone asks you, you can't really think of anything at the time. But then later I did share with her what I call my rock bottom story. I've had a couple of really low points in my life, but this was definitely one that was memorable. I was in my early 30s. It was really a perfect storm of multiple things hitting all around the same time. And I was in my early 30s when three things hit me. One, I found out that my mom had stage 3 cancer. A couple of weeks after finding this out, I went through a layoff at work. It was my first time to go through something like this. And third, I was still struggling to get pregnant. And it probably took me about a year to fully get out of it and bring myself out of it. When I found out about my mom, of course, nothing can prepare you for that. And she was in Houston, so I started traveling to go help wherever I could and provide emotional support. And then, when I got laid off, that was a shock. Really, my confidence was at its lowest. I was going through a website refresh. We were about 85% of the way through an 80-page website refresh. And if anybody knows me, you know that I have a very difficult time walking away when things are not completed. So having pushed this project through so far, and then to go through the layoff, my confidence was probably at the lowest it had ever been. I had made it through school. This was kind of my first, what I felt, failure. I was questioning my value. I was questioning my self-worth. That was an understatement. And it just felt like I had failed. And, anywhere I looked, having my mom someone you love, go through something like chemo and radiation is very difficult. And then, you're also trying to hang in there for your own family. And also, when I was working, both my husband and I were working, probably 55-hour, 60-hour work weeks. And so one thing that you go through, or at least I went through after a layoff, when you're at that pace and you have that group and that structure, it's essentially like, you're on a treadmill. And when you step off the treadmill, it's somewhat of a shock. And really, for a period of time, I just felt frozen. I felt like it was paralyzing. I felt like I couldn't move, and I didn't know where was the best move to take at that point. And it even, so, my husband was still working. Most of my friends were working. So there wasn't really anybody to meet up with very much. And I also really didn't want to like meet up with too many people, just because, you know, the common question that people ask you are, how are you doing? And I didn't really have a great answer. So even though I may have had, you know, friends that I probably could have called, I didn't want them to really ask me how I was doing because I felt like I had failed. And you know, so not having, you know, people around at the time, not having my husband, it got to the point where, and I'm so embarrassed to say this, but I even got to a point where I started asking neighbors I didn't know well for a hug. And all this was happening while I was bringing myself to travel back and forth to Houston, to try to emotionally support my parents. You know, and I had had the privilege of becoming a stepmom, and I also had a desire to have a baby. And when I was still struggling, and I think, you know, you notice it more, I think you can get distracted when you're working, but then when everything kind of stops, you kind of stop and look around and you take inventory of your life. And yeah, so with all three of these happening and feel like hitting me at the same time, I felt like my heart was gonna rip apart and break into pieces. And like I said, I felt like everywhere I looked, I couldn't see a way forward. And finally, at one point, I finally decided to take full responsibility of my life. I said, I'm going to give it everything I have and I'm going to stay focused. I even had to pause on some friendships, of texting people or checking up on people as well, just because I realized that I needed to take care of myself and I needed to figure this out. So I made a decision to invest in myself. I hired a business coach to help me really figure out my next career move. And she also helped me process the layoff, which I definitely needed to clear all that out before I started a new job, and get emotionally current. You know what I mean? I also sought out fertility specialists and I did the work to get myself to a better place. And I'm so grateful because during all of this, one thing I really learned was how to take care of myself, own my situation, and figure it out, right? I learned how to change my mindset. I learned how to crush some of my limiting beliefs that I had. I was able to get pregnant. My mom beat cancer, and I was able to get help where I could. And so, you know, getting crystalline clear on who I am, getting crystalline clear on what my strengths are, and owning it. And I had to put certain things on hold during this time. If you're going through something, if you're going through a perfect storm, or something that feels like your rock bottom, I get it. I understand. One thing I would encourage everyone to do is to reach out to someone. Luckily, I was still reaching out to some friends, but I had some friends, like the friend that I met up with a couple of weeks ago. She's a really good friend, and she had no idea that I was going through that. And because when you're going through stuff, sometimes you want to share with those that are close around you, but sometimes things are so personal that it's helpful to seek outside help as well. I've spoken with therapists. I hired a business coach, like I said, and seeking outside help and not doing this alone. And I'm purposely dressed as if I would to be on a business call or something like that. I did this intentionally because even when people look like everything is going well, we don't know what's truly happening with people. And on the outside, I may have looked like I was fine. Um, but like I said, on the inside, I felt like my heart was being ripped apart. I just felt like, what else can happen? And I know, like, knock on wood, I hate saying that because then I feel like something else happens. But, you know, when it's your family struggling, when you feel like you're failing with your career or your purpose and your life, and also when you get to that point in your 30s, of having that desire to have a baby, and for many of us, it takes a little bit longer, and there's so much that goes along with that. You know, I want to encourage you to reach out to people and, you know, find ways to get yourself to a better place, find ways to help heal yourself. If that means going on YouTube and finding a playlist of affirmations, start to change your language, start to change your mindset. A lot of this really does have a huge effect, and I wish that I could have turned it around a lot quicker. But to be honest, I delayed in seeking out help probably longer than I should have. And while it looks like in the moment that not reaching out to someone, or maybe you're just too busy, or you just have too many things going on, maybe it seems that way, but in the long run, helping you get to a better place is so valuable. And so, you know, finding ways to heal yourself, finding ways to get yourself to a better place, and on an ongoing basis. Maybe it's making a goal of once or twice a week, you reach out to a friend. Maybe it's something extremely personal, and so you seek out, you know, a therapist or a counselor. Need that outside support. And so I'm sharing my rock bottom story because I feel like it's needed right now. It really showed me when, you know, a good friend of mine asked and was going through something, and I think she just felt good to know that she's not the only one feeling this way, and that I had gone through something, and I was even asking neighbors I didn't know for a hug. Guys, when you get to that point, like, there aren't even words when you get to a point like that. And so just want to send out hope to everybody. I hope that this is helpful for some people to hear, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.